Hi, guys. Welcome to another episode of Around the Emirates podcast with Sarah. I'm here with a fellow ACS alumni, Munira. Welcome, Munira.
Thank you for having me, Sara.
Of course. So, Munira, tell me all about you and your passion, your creative vision, and of course, Dirwaza Lab.
Absolutely. So I am an independent curator, and I've recently launched a platform called Dirwaza Lab. Dirwaza Lab is a curatorial lab. It's a place to think. It's a place where people come together to kind of incubate ideas and then bring them to a realization. Now, Dirwaza is something that I've been thinking about for a very long time, over the last 5 or 6 years, and I've been working on it prior to the inception of the platform for about 2 years. Seriously working on it. The Dirwaza Lab kind of looks at two things. It's on one side, it's a space where I can collaborate with people, realize projects that need to be realized within the cultural frame. And then on the other side, which is the side that I think is super exciting, is the incubator, where I'm bringing people in, bringing people together to start to think about various things like language, to think about vocabulary, and readdressing perhaps adopted histories and narratives that are being used within the cultural sphere. And so it's a critical space, but it's also a space where inception takes place. It's a space of inspiration. It's a space of exchange. And for me, I think that that's the most important thing when looking into the art scene and into the creative scene. It is really kind of at the heart of everything is to come together as a community.
That's beautiful. Wow. So it's several things, right? It's not just it's an incubator, it's also a platform, it's an opportunity for artists who have different types of artistic creative skills to come together and present their ideas in different ways, like not just the traditional, pen on paper, which is really cool. So I understand that you've had this passion for a while, like you've always had this kind of creative vision in your head of what you want to achieve with your life. So tell me your story about how you turned you harnessed that passion into what you do today.
Absolutely. So I've always been a creative kid. I'm one of three. I have two older brothers and myself. And I always had this sort of I was always creatively inclined, let's say. So when people are going right, I was always somewhere dabbling around on the left-hand side, side of things, and just kind of thinking and looking at things in a very different way. And from a young age, through school, the art teachers always kind of kept a close eye with whatever it was that I was doing. They were always around. I have had two best friends since a very young age, but I wasn't social or had like the capacity to socialize with anyone up until third grade when I had my a teacher who basically changed my life. Her name is Miss Daney at ACS. And then that kind of opened up sort of my understanding. But prior to that, I spent my lunch times in the art classroom, actually, a lot of times.
Oh, okay.
With the art teachers, just sitting down with them, drawing, sketching, talking, playing with Play-Doh. And my mom always really kind of reinforced this creativity in me and supported it. And
that's
so
good.
Kind of dating, yeah, it's been great, alhamdulillah. Dating back, I guess I in the third grade had to start keeping a journal because of some learning disabilities that I had. So I had to continue writing, and so they suggested that I start keeping a journal, and within the journal I have a journal entry that states, when I grow up, I'm going to be an artist or an astronaut. So I think it's really funny because it's two things that are very sort of like separate to the idea of like gravity and like the realities of the world. It's kind of looking at the world from the outside and onto it, but also you have to be an active participant of it to understand it sort of from a bird's eye view. So I just kind of focused on the arts throughout my schooling career. It became the only and most important subject to me. Everything else was extremely secondary. I would hand in I would work on my essays only after I finished my art stuff.
I see.
It was extremely important for me it was important for me on a personal note. So that made sense. And I didn't have to make sense with the rest of what made sense with regards to, focusing on science or, putting a little bit more effort into math. I knew what I wanted and I knew what made me feel good. And I knew where I could also participate and not only get, but give. And so with that, I ended up graduating from ACS and moving to the UK. I, funnily enough, did a year of law for my foundation year, just to kind of my sort of just, I don't know, there was panic around me going into art school, and then I was told that I could make a wall talk if I needed it to, so why not go into law? So I was convinced. I did it for a year, hated it. I did well, but I did not enjoy it at all. And then from there, I decided to go into the art history program to kind of arrive to a place that's a medium and in between. And I, at ACS, was very much told that there's no art that has come out of the region outside of like calligraphy, which is extremely incorrect. And so what ended up happening for me is I started to focus in on the region. And because I went to SOAS, I was learning the history of art from the lens of Africa, the Middle East, Southeast Asia, and the Far East. So I was able to, really get an alternative understanding of what art is, as opposed to, receiving the Western canon of what art history is. I think that to me is the basis of my thinking still today until present. Of course, I graduated from university, and then I was doing internships and whatnot. And I quickly there was a moment of conversion for me because I was very interested in the historical element of the arts. And then there was a turning point for me, actually, where I was in New York. I was lost. It was the evening. My phone was completely dead. When I started panicking, and I hadn't mastered the subway systems, and so I was just praying for a cab to come by. And then I saw a group of individuals outside space, so I thought I'll just stand around there and wait to see if somebody comes out of the cab. And then very funnily, quickly, somebody puts their hand on my shoulder, and it was another ACS alumni from the older generation. Her name is Lina Al-Qadoumi, and she kind of puts her hand on my shoulder, and she's like, Mooni, and I was just like, Lina. She's like, what are you doing here? I'm like, well, if you want the truth, this is what's going on. And it's interesting because I gravitated towards a group of people who kind of looked like me also. They looked like a bunch of creatives. They were, brown kids. So what I ended up learning was there were a bunch of Khaliji artists who are now part of something known as the GCC Collective. And that was their first exhibition together, but separately. And so I went in, and why I appreciate history of art is, or what I used to always say when people tell me, like, what does that even mean that you're studying history of art? I say that I'm looking at the painting, let's say, or a ceramic. And from that ceramic, I end up learning about the religion, the gender politics, the regular politics, what they ate, how they slept. And I learned that you learn about everything via an object. And so that is why art is important, because these objects become tokens of stories, and those stories are the history of it becomes the history of the land that you're on or not on, this object carries truth, and to me that truth became of interest. And I'm a natural storyteller, so what ended up happening was I didn't get into a cab. I ended up staying the rest of the night with these creatives in New York, and I was taken around this exhibition which showed contemporary art from the Gulf, and in specific from Kuwait. And I was blown, I was just like, I need to be a part of this vocabulary that is kind of assessing and addressing the things that are important to us now via objects or via art, contemporary art in this way. And so for me, it was just from there kind of upwards within the contemporary art frame. So
Wow. That's firstly incredible how you happened to run into these people in New York when you were, lost and didn't have your phone with you. That is such, like, the coincidence is like insane. But I think there's a phrase that you just said that stuck with me about art being a token of stories. So art is not just about, painting something and it looks nice. It tells a story. It's a piece of our history. It's a piece of our humanity and the evolution we've gone through as a human race. So the fact that you are able to bring that out, especially like amongst GCC artists, I think is really cool. I have not heard or seen anyone else do that personally, so I think that's really inspiring. So my next question is more about kind of the obstacles that you've gone through. So you've gone through, I mean, you've told me your full story here, but was there any moment where you were really held back from your passions and you thought to yourself, like, I'm just not going to do this right now. I won't be able to succeed right now?
No, I think I'm a very stubborn individual. So
never mind. That's the question.
It would be very difficult for me to get to a point where I'm like, I can't do this. I think that there's definitely a solution to everything. And to kind of piggyback on what you were saying, there are a lot of creative practitioners in the region who are doing incredible things. So there are my peers amongst me, I tip my hat to them. They've been doing and have been participating. There's been an art scene in the region since if we're looking at Kuwait, since the 60s, in the UAE from the 70s. So there's a misconception, and I guess I think earlier you were asking me if there's a point that I would like to make via this podcast. Art has always existed here, always been here,
right.
Be it pre-Islamic times or post-Islamic times or in the contemporary frame. We have giants that have come out of the UAE with regards to the arts, and are making a huge impact in the international scene. And that to me is sort of للأسف, I think it's a story that I've heard and continue hearing for people who are not within the creative art scene or the creative scene in general. Creatives have always existed there. We are one, amongst many, and their creatives are necessary in every society. So I think for me, I've never really, because I've been so lucky to be just supported. And even when things like in 2007, who was studying history of art to come back to the UAE, there was still no announcement of the museums. There was no announcement. There was no real announcements of this sort of cultural evolution that actually has taken place in the last 10 years. But I went with what I went with because I know what I like. And I think that at the end of the day, if you know what you like and you're good at what you like, then why would you be doing something else? And why would you sit down and kind of say that things can't exist? I can't tell you that I always knew I wanted to be a curator, but at the end, what I saw of curating is actually what I do. It's this tying of narratives. It's the stories coming together. It's building a moment around the theme that allows me to showcase artworks that respond or react to this theme. And I think that art has been used on a policy scale, even because it's considered it's soft diplomacy, where you can come in and you can create exchange. Art is a conversation.
Yeah, it very much is. Yeah,
100%. And I think that to look back, I think I've had hurdles, plenty, but they've only seemed to me like hurdles. They've never seemed to me as obstacles or things that I can't get across. If there is no road that is already paved, I will pave that road for myself to take. And I think that that's really, it's really important to have that hat on, especially if you're participating in something that's so new. It's something that is new in its infrastructure, not new in its ideologies. then, at the end of the day, or in the long run, I think for me, I've worked with two institutions, and then I've realized that what I want to do is outside of the institution, and what I wanted to do wasn't there. So I put my head down, and I got to thinking, and I was given lots of opportunities that I took and learned from, and only to kind of evolve and adjust before, I guess, launching Dirwaza, which really for me embodies all of me in one
Right.
platform. So it's everything that I have been doing, since leaving sort of the institution on a grassroots level. I've kind of come back and done a lot, and I needed a house for it. So
Mm-hmm.
so Darwaza became the house for it. But metaphor not initially intended, but I will run with this now. But a Darwaza is the small door, in the big door, that's
Mm.
on the outside gates. So I always say that small door, you can open it and you can let things breathe, but you can also close it and let things cook.
Right.
And so Darwaza is this place where we are letting things simmer, but we're also opening up the door to let things air out, and again, this exchange or this give and take becomes extremely important. It becomes at the center of everything that I do.
That's phenomenal. Thank you so much for explaining just the detail and the train of mind, the train of thought, sorry, behind all of that. I feel like through this conversation, I've like had a glimpse into your brain and kind of like how you work and like your creative side, but also like your analytical side and how you've put all of this together. So like that's a huge success in its own to have be able to come up with the Dirwaza lab, and just the symbolism behind it is inspiring. But I do have one more question for you. Obviously, you're an Emirati female. Can you tell me more about like what it was like as an Emirati female with the only female in your family, right? Because you have older brothers. What was it like to go through this process and kind of explore this part of you as a female in the society that we live in today?
I think it's amazing, to have been the only girl in my family. I think I had a lot of support.
Okay.
There's a lot of, there's a lot, the predominant amount of our creative industry is female led. Like,
Mm-hmm.
to make that clear. And then also with regards to the UAE and the history of the UAE, the woman has always been at the forefront.
Okay.
And so I think that that's something that we're very lucky to have, because every household has a female who will put you also in that sort of front line to do what you have to do, to participate in in everything that you think is going to further empower and further push forward this narrative and your voice. I think that it's really interesting, and I'm realizing now I'm wearing a gender equality shirt, and I think that this is something that is in existence around the world, where gender politics exists, and it's something that that we all, any individual, be it male or female, has gone through. And I think that it's just important that people own up to their voices. I have a funny story perhaps to tell you here, but I got approached maybe in 2017, I would like to say, by two individuals. One was a photographer from Germany, the other a female, and the other one was an anthropologist from the UK. And they emailed a bunch of women who are at the forefront of the art scene in the UAE, and to interview them and photograph them, to tell the world that women in the UAE actually have a voice. And I was just like, this is extremely belittling. I don't need anybody to come tell me from the outside why or that I have a voice. I have a voice, and I'm aware that I have a voice. I don't need anybody coming in and giving me their stamp of approval. My voice is not the same as the voice of somebody in the West, because I'm not from the West.
Right.
And I think that this is something that became a huge problem, and all of the creatives kind of got together and sat these two ladies down, saying, do you not see that you're first of all, orientalizing, belittling, there's a lot that is taking place here that is extremely incorrect. And you obviously have not done your research before coming here, because this is not a place where women are secondary. Absolutely not.
100%.
And so for us, it became, everybody kind of came together to tell them, this is not a place where women are secondary, and this is a place where women already have their voice. And the art scene or the creative scene is a place where you definitely feel that and definitely see that it's female led. Third, you have, of course, you have, men in the scene, absolutely, but kind of the movers and the shakers.
Females are very much at the face of it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I see. That's extremely interesting. I actually didn't know that females, like I didn't know that there were that many kind of artists and creatives in the region or even in the country. That's really cool information to have. And the fact that you're saying to me that you kind of have like such a close-knit community, and like you kind of band together, and you not only promote each individual artist and each individual creative vision, but you also promote it through exhibitions and through coming together, exchanging stories, like you said, from across the region. So I think that's a beautiful way to, like you said, soft diplomacy, right? So expressing yourselves and expressing your views, but doing it in a peaceful, nonviolent, and kind of engaging way. So we've kind of covered the most important things in the story, which I think is going to open the eyes of some people watching or listening to this episode. I just have one last favor to ask of you, please. Is there kind of any piece of advice you have for any up and coming creatives who are looking for a way to kind of express themselves but might not have the tools or the support to do it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as on the outside, perhaps intimidating, the art scene may look, it's not that intimidating. Anybody that is interested in any particular artist, curator, writer, thinker, just approach them, send them a DM. I'm always happy to receive, messages from people that I don't know, to kind of give them direction or, answer any questions that they have, and or connect them with the right people. And I think that's sort of, that's sort of a really important element to take into consideration. And also, if you're passionate about something and something isn't working, figure out a way to make it work. Always look at things from different angles. And I think a creative does that naturally. So once you have that creative problem solving intact and at hand, then you can actually really move with the waves that are coming your way.
I love them. Move with the waves that are coming your way. That's going to be like a quote for this entire episode. Well, thank you so much, Munira, for your time and for explaining your story. So you guys know that Munira is available on social media. She's got her Instagram page, and like she said, feel free to message her. Check out the Dirwaza Lab as well. See what they're doing there. Of course, as you guys know, there's a new episode out every other Saturday, so please keep an eye out for new episodes. And of course, I'll be posting some teasers of this video. So Munira, thank you so much for your time, and I will see you soon.
Thank you. Have a lovely day.
Bye.